No.
Okay, get in frame.
Wait.
Give it a second.
Notebook.
Week 2 podcast 2.
Episode 2, starting now. Woo! Okay. So, we were just talking about my taste in pens, and he was saying I have shit taste in pens, but I do not have shit taste in pens. Like, I just take a lot of pride in my pens. I'm not going to go on about this too much because it's not the greatest, but pens. Very important to, like,
Enjoy
like,
the
I like to
tools.
write it. Oh.
Enjoy the tools that you work with every day. The Pilot V5.
Even they're your brother. But it's like a Staples notebook, and then I like the Pilot G210s. Those I've been loving.
No, okay.
But really though,
Pilot V5s with just a thick pad of white copy paper.
no.
That's the best. It is the best. Okay. Anyways, back to the topic. Metabolism.
So, still pens a little bit though. 'Cause it's
metabolism. We're trying to talk metabolism right now.
Trying to talk metabolism.
Talking metabolism.
His job is ultimately to keep me on task, so I'm gonna listen to him here. Let's get into metabolism. So, yeah. The joke
Okay.
that he's my pimp. Joke. Ha ha ha. Anyway, so metabolism. It's kind of good that that stopped, but let's just get back into like what was really interesting me, which was basically like we were talking this morning. This is my water jug. Did I forget my other water jug? Whatever.
No,
It's
it's
a green
right
tea.
here.
Okay,
It's
keep
fine.
passing that. So I have my water and everything. Got my whole setup. Like I just.
Anyways, I'm going to be putting out a video of the discussion from this morning, and we were talking about how in ancient mythology you have the titans, you have the gods, you have the nymphs, and what are those creatures? Like, did they actually exist? And talk.
So you can interview me basically. We'll start the conversation by you interviewing me on the mythology I shared with you this morning. So,
well, no, the mythology I shared with you this morning is going to be covered in a video, which I will link down below.
I'm just
going
doing
to
now
post
too. I mean, because like this.
No, you covered it really well this morning. I'm just going to post that video.
Okay,
And
sure. We'll just link that down because I covered.
Anyways, okay.
I'll try to redo it.
another thing that you talked about is
So you interview me on
in the Bible.
metabolism.
You talked about how people lived for ages and ages and ages, and you attribute that to health and metabolism. Can you explain more about that and how society has changed over time?
Okay, so
For those that don't know, talk about how long people used to live in the Bible and what those accounts.
okay, so I'll just start with this train of thought. This is a good introduction to this train of thought. So, in the Bible, people lived for varying amounts of time. Obviously, you know, and the Bible is like a genealogy of people. So it records people, lets you know about the people, tells you all about the people. One of the things it tells you about the people, this is my green tea, is that the people live for varying amounts of time. And it gets into it. So I think Jacob lived to be about 70. Joseph maybe lived into his 70s or 80s. This is in Genesis. Abraham, I think, lived like 150. That's crazy. Abraham, grandfather of Jacob, and great-grandfather of Joseph, lived 150. Like, that's pretty crazy. And these are rough numbers. I mean, he started his venture at 100. So Abraham was well over 100. I think about 150, but some nerd in the comments going to be like, it was 130 or 155.3 and whatever.
We thank you for that comment and that engagement.
No, thank you. No, it does help because then I actually, I'm not going to believe you, so you're not giving me information because it's something we've just telling me shit. But I will go look it up after this, so I will know this stuff more specifically. But basically, Abraham lived like 150 years. I think Isaac was maybe like 100. Isaac was pretty old, but not as old as Abraham. And then his sons didn't live as long. So I'm getting into this. This is just something I noticed. And I have to start here because otherwise it doesn't really...
Take the table in half. You get the frame.
You get the benefit of
So
seeing
I think
brothers
now-
bickering, which is kind of fun. So it's a long tradition. But... So... So we start here. We start at Abraham living for like 150 years and Jacob living for like 70 years. Well, Jacob lived at a time of famine. And as we know, in times of famine, people ate grains. They didn't typically eat grains in times of prosperity because grains is for the animals. You use the grains to feed the animals. Maybe you make some bread here or there, but most of what you eat is going to be meat, milk, less so meat, but more so like lots of milk, dairy. This is why you have herd animals, fruit, seasonally stored fruit. Bread is something you would eat like in times of famine, really.
This is more to give them an overview.
But this I am though, yeah, because
overview of the age and how people lived and how your hypothesis with metabolism, and then get into the details. Because for a lot of people, they're not going to know why the heck you're talking about the fruits and the grains and all.
Okay, that's what I'm getting to right now. So
overview and then go in.
Okay, so I have to finish this because this is the beginning of this train of thought. If I do not explain why this occurred to me, you won't understand anything. So this, back when I first started doing carnivore at the age of like 19, I'd had insomnia my whole life, barely being able to sleep, and it was just like driving me nuts. So eventually he and I go on carnivore. This is kind of one of my last ditch efforts to fix the insomnia because I didn't know what to do at this point. I'd spent tens of thousands of hours researching this, and I was like, how am I going to start sleeping? Go on strict carnivore, start sleeping again. Stayed on it for 2.5 years because I didn't know how to not just eat meat, because if I didn't, I would stop sleeping. I've since figured out why that was and how to mitigate that effect, so I can eat meat and sleep, I can not eat meat and sleep, I can do carnivore and sleep. I know how to use these things as tools, but at the beginning, I was just like, meat, cow, like I understood why the ancient Israelites worshiped the cow. Like, let's just put that out there. I understood like why they worship the cow. Well, the cow gives you milk. Milk builds your digestive system. You can give it to your kids, and it's amazing for you. Cow gives you meat. Meat absolutely does wonders for your body, makes you super strong. The cow can pull a plow, so you can plant grain. The cow manure fertilizes the grain. You feed the grain to the cow. Like, you can use cows to tow stones to build houses. Psychedelic mushrooms grow in cow poop. Why wouldn't you worship the cow? I was just like I was pretty, like, I was literally like, at that time, I was like, I really want to worship cows because they just only eat meat, and now I'm sleeping. And I was thinking about the Bible and how God got mad at the Israelites for worshiping the cow, but I was like, I get it though. Like, I get it. But you don't want to just worship the cow because then you miss out on other things. And I think that in some weird way, God may have been warning the ancient Israelites against only doing a carnivorous diet based on the cow for reasons that we're now going to see in current people who are doing the carnivore diet, because they're all running into issues related to iron overload, and that's basically, I think, due to enzyme depletion because they're not eating any fermented. I think there's, without getting too into it, like I'm drinking green tea right now for the polyphenols, but I'm on carnivore right now. I'll get into that dichotomy later, but funny enough, actually, I think in Chinese medicine they believe that green tea is the most yin food you can consume, and red meat is one of the most yang foods you can consume, so it's balanced, and that's going to be the topic of later. But basically, though, I'm just eating tons of meat. I feel like I'm on steroids, like I'm just ripped. I'm deadlifting like 550 pounds. I'm putting up crazy records. I'm kicking everyone's butt in jiu-jitsu. I have like cardio for days. Everything's amazing. My body, I feel like a god. And I'm like, okay, well, this is interesting. So I noticed certain things in books I was listening to. I'll point out another thing. And this is what led to my observation in the Old Testament. So we have, I was listening to Neil Gaiman's rendition of, No, it's Neil Gaiman's rendition of Norse mythology. And one of the tidbits in that was that the Vikings had two words for food. There was meat, which was food, and then there was stuff that you fed to animals, which was not meat. The Vikings were notorious for being the most fearsome, strongest, biggest, most muscular, craziest warriors. They basically just demolished all of Europe and everywhere they went until they realized that it was more profitable to trade. That's the only thing that stopped the Vikings, and being in this state of deep ketosis, beef, salt, water, Jordan Peterson style lion diet with my green tea. Though at the time I wasn't drinking green tea, but right now I am on that lion diet. That's why I have so much like energy and focus. It's just, whew. I also have protein type. I'll get into that more later. There's like lots to do with cellular metabolism, and the main focus of longevity is going to be the mitochondria. So anyway, Vikings have two words for food: meat, and then what you feed to animals. I agreed with that at the time because I was only consuming meat. I mean, now I have a more nuanced view of it because I'm consuming this, and I think that the Vikings maybe missed out on some stuff that we can get into. Because this is ultimately getting into like how to live forever, and the Vikings didn't live forever, and people who go on carnivore diets don't live forever. So clearly a carnivore diet is not how you live forever.
When you say live forever, is it actually live forever, or are you talking more about like the Taoist?
I'm talking about in theory living forever. Like there's
the Taoist sages.
Like the Taoist sages were exceptionally long lived, but so this is something that's.
Can you talk about the Taoist sages for a minute and just explain what they are?
Okay, so basically just the Taoist sages were just these sages. There's Taoist sages. They're Taoists. They believe in Taoism. They practice Taoism. They follow the Tao.
Which is an ancient Chinese philosophy.
Yeah, ancient Chinese philosophy. I mean, you look at the like Tao Te Ching and stuff, and Tao is beyond Tao. For anything spoken of Tao is not Tao, but less than Tao, and whatever. That Taoism, So they're Taoist sages, and they like to walk. That's the main thing about Taoist sages, is they really like to walk. And they also have reports of Taoist sages just living like 200 years old. I mean, I say reports, they just mean like that. Like there's newspaper articles from like 1800 about these things. They've met with world leaders in the past 400 years. I don't know of any currently, and this isn't like something. I'm not looking into the Taoist sages right now because I don't think there are any I can find easily. Maybe there are. If there are, again, let me know in the comments below. Love to go talk to them. But basically, though, there's just accounts of these people who just live for a very long time. I mean, there's lots of accounts of people who live a very long time. Abraham's another one. Abraham lived like 150 years. Wow, that's crazy. Abraham was 150. So, I mean, this is just sort of Taoist sage stuff. Like, there's accounts of Taoist sages living to 150. There's accounts of Taoist sages living to 180. There's accounts of Taoist sages living to 299. I don't know of many who have claimed to have lived 500 years. But there's accounts of Nicholas Flamel, a supposedly immortal alchemist. There's just accounts of very long-lived people. Like, I think, like Merlin, I think, is supposed to age backwards from the dawn of time, which is really weird, but... I don't know, you just look into history, they're surprisingly sober accounts, often enough of very remarkable things. And if you just look, okay, like, I think it may have been Rene Descartes, the guy, I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. I think it was Rene Descartes said that the inspiration for his mathematical genius came by an angel who appeared to him and told him that the conquest of the material world would take place via measurement and number. That's just what Rene Descartes said. We're all using his math. That's where he said it came from, was an angel who told him that to conquer the material world, we'd have to use measurement and number. The world is just weirder than your school teacher told you. The things your school, the people who created the ideas your school teacher taught you about, your school teacher would have thought were insane. So we should start by just there. So back to connecting Abraham, Jacob, and everything. So Jacob lived in a time of famine. That was the whole thing. Joseph had to go into Egypt and then become very successful in Egypt, and then his family moved into Egypt because there was a famine. So now we're seeing a distinction between longevity of Abraham and the longevity of Jacob and the presence of a famine. Well, why? What's the difference between living in a famine and living not in a famine? Well, if we go to the Vikings' definition of food, which is also a very common definition of food in the ancient world, there's reasons that you had, like, the Passover lamb is a lamb. Later Christianity kind of reverses this by making the food of a famine, bread, the food of life. It's a reversal. And he turns wine, which is created by fermentation, which is a death process. And alcohol it's a death process. It's rotting grapes. It's decomposition. And then turning that into life as well. But I mean, also ancient wine was fermented, so there would be lacto-fermentation there, which could be beneficial for your gut bacteria, but also alcohol, so...
Also just making the water safe.
Also making the water safe. So there's levels to this and the symbolism, but meat in the ancient world was food. It was the food that was valued. Like,
it was the food that was sacrificed to the gods.
It's the food that was sacrificed to the gods. You look at, like, ancient Greek mythology. The ancient Greeks had that thing right. Like, it's just... There's the food you feed to the gods.
And the food of all religions. Look at the Muslims. What they sacrifice and what do they do?
Cain and Abel. Cain sacrificed grain and stuff, and Abel sacrificed a lamb. And God was happy with Abel's sacrifice and not with Cain's. So we just see this again and again and again and again and again and again. So I just kind of inferred at this time in my life, when I was like 20, 21, that people in the ancient world were much stronger and healthier than we are today. Like, look at ancient Greek athletes, the records of ancient Greek athletes, that they put us to shame. Like, there's boulders in ancient Greece that are over 1,000 pounds that have inscriptions on them that are thousands of years old that says, like, this boulder was lifted of, like, Milo of Croton, maybe. I don't know, I'm throwing him out there because he's a famous Greek. Milo of Croton, who lifted a cow. Meat and strength. Like, it's just there. Like, if you have eyes, you open them and you look and you're like, Shakespeare. Feed them beef and give them iron and they will eat like wolves and fight like demons. Wow. I mean, it's just everywhere. Like, if you can't see it, then you're a silly person. So, go watch Game Changers. So, go get Game Changers. Like Sean Baker, the carnivore doctor who set world records at the age of 60. It goes on and on and on. So, okay.
What's his records?
And like rowing and stuff, like stationary rowing bikes.
Not real sports. I'm just joking.
No, I mean, we fight people.
Rowing is a competition. Rowing is an average competition with physical.
Sean Baker's cool. I'd love to wrestle him. But anyway.
We have a mat. Sean, if you watch this, we have a mat, so hit us up.
And then you can teach me how to deadlift properly, because I probably don't know shit about deadlifting compared to you. But anywho, so casually challenging Sean Baker to a wrestling match. But anyway, so basically,
please forward this to him.
What?
So please forward this to him.
Yeah, forward it. That would actually be awesome. I would love to. And
we will film it and put it up on
regardless
YouTube.
of the result. Sean Baker, let's make this happen. But
like, who the hell are these guys?
Yeah. Anyway. So like, so connecting. So anyway, so meat strength. I do think that you can be healthy. I didn't used to think you could be healthy eating grains. I've since changed my mind on that. I think there could be this is a weird idea I'll just throw out there too. I had another idea that perhaps in paradise, Adam and Eve had a perfect gut microbiome, which is what allowed them to live forever without consuming animals. It's a fascinating idea, because your gut microbiome produces like pounds of amino acids for you over the course of a week. It produces, look up what your gut microbiome produces for you in terms of short-chain fatty acids, amino acids, neurotransmitters, precursors to neurotransmitters, anti-inflammatory molecules, all this stuff. So in Eden, potentially we had, this is just like, so now we're getting into this idea that my brother was prompting me to get into. So maybe in Eden we had perfect gut microbiomes, and that's why we live forever.
Metabolism.
Exactly, perfect metabolism, and that was connected to a perfect thought process. And then when we sinned, we developed guilt. I mean, guilt and shame will hurt your gut microbiome. Like, negative emotions negatively impact your gut microbiome. Look it up. This is scientific fact. Now they have an imperfect gut microbiome, and then the fall. I mean, it's just a random idea. I think that there's obviously many, many levels at which these metaphysical realities and stories play out and exist. But that's just an interesting idea, because we're exploring the health dimension of these stories right now. The health dimension of mythology, because it's certainly a dimension of mythology. So,
whatever.
So
let's check it.
Yep, that's good. So basically, though, the health dimension of mythology. Okay, so then we get into now we have the story. The story is set for us. I'll get into this anew. So Adam and Eve live forever, and then their gut microbiome gets fucked, so now they don't live forever anymore. They live a shorter amount of time than forever, 1,000 years. And their children live 1,000 years. I mean, they don't live exactly 1,000 years. It kind of varies, but there's a sort of idea there's a limit of 1,000 years, but it's not exactly 1,000. Like, when God says that man's years shall number like 140 or 120 or something, Abraham lived like 150. Like, it's kind of it's an average. He's saying people will average this. And I think, so this is kind of my idea. I think most of what we experience of aging is a social construct, simply because old people our society segregates by age. So if you're only around people who act old, you'll just get old faster, or you'll at least lose the abilities of the young, call that aging, become demoralized, and that'll kill you. Faster, at least, than you would have died otherwise. So I'm just looking at the world as I see it.
Reject aging, and if you're wrong, you won't be around to see people laugh at you because you'll be dead.
Yeah, whatever.
I mean, who cares?
No, I mean, so I'm just looking at the world. So I had insomnia growing up for most of my life, and when I was 16, it actually got so bad, like I wasn't sleeping, I had like erectile dysfunction, my hormones went to shit, I was just crapping my brains out, it was absolutely terrible, and I was just dying, I candida rash all over my groin, it was nasty, it was not a fun time. So, I don't really want to get into it right now because that's not really what this is about, but I have another video linked down below that is that story, so go check that out. But anywho, so I was experienced, and my joints felt like terrible. I felt like I was like a 90-year-old man. Really, I mean, there were like people in their 60s who had better erections than I did at 16. So I'm like, okay, well, and I talked to my doctor and stuff. They'd be like, well, they had no idea. They're like, well, like maybe you're aging fast or whatever. Do you want some drugs? And I'm just like, oh god. So literally, they're like dudes in their 22. So since I had that erectile dysfunction, I've since talked to a lot of young men about erectile dysfunction, just because I kind of decided that I was going to help people not have to deal with that. So it would mean that like my suffering, because like the only way that I can feel cool about having had erectile dysfunction and the subsequent embarrassment, shame, and annoyance that came with that at the age of 16 is if I help other people not experience that, so I can feel good about having learned something. So I just went out and I just kind of like, I don't know, people like would tell me, I have bad erections and stuff, because I kind of like open up about my health problems, they'd open up. And there's a lot of people you would not think have had erectile problems, like just like top tier athletes, like a lot of top tier athletes. I went to UMass were getting health coached by me for erectile dysfunction, mostly due to overtraining, over-reliance on caffeine for performance, and the subsequent drain in electrolytes that came from that.
Wrestling, it's such a huge thing. Weight cutting, I know many top athletes,
losing their hair.
I know many people at New England who place, and I've talked to them about weight cutting, and I'm like, hey dude, like, how is this with your hormones? And he's like, yeah man, like during the season I have no sex drive at all, and I feel like shit. But afterwards, I just eat a bunch of food and I kind of go back to normal. Like, you think there's any long-term effects on this? He's like, I hope not, but like, I can't really focus on that right now because I'm just. I mean, there are people who prioritize winning more than their health because that's what they want to do, and at high levels, that's a lot of what you get. Is like when you're cutting 15 pounds a week, you get erectile dysfunction, you get sleep issues. You get really weird mood swings and mental states that you enter into. You wonder how many people you'd kill for a sip of water. And the answer is all the fucking people that you want to. Because water's good, man. Water's really good.
Yeah, you go to like a really crazy dark place and also experience some form of accelerated aging, which is why we don't cut weight anymore for combat sports. Just go the weight you are, really. Like, what? It's just weird. So,
train better and be smarter.
Train your mitochondria. You'll be stronger. So, basically, though... Yeah, so I was experiencing accelerated aging. I got gray hair when I was 16. It went away after I started sleeping again. But that kind of gave me this idea that, like, aging is not some fixed thing. And since then, I've learned that our DNA has mechanisms that repair itself. Our DNA can repair itself when our metabolism is high. One of the main things that influences aging is retention of iron in the cells and the depletion of enzymes. So I look at aging and I'm like, this is a system of symbiotic feedback loops that end up getting made dysfunctional due to eating poison, social conditioning, and the absence of the ability to think otherwise. Because that's what I was experiencing. Because I mean, I literally, like, everyone was telling me, like, oh, this is just what it is. You're going to go on drugs. You're probably just going to die. And I'm like...
I love it when you go to the doctors. You're like, hey, I have this issue. And they're like, yeah, it's really just genetics. And I'm like, really? Isn't that fascinating? Like,
you go to medical school for like 12 years to like tell me it's genetics? That's crazy.
Whenever my doctor tells me something's genetics, I'm like, okay, so you just don't freaking understand the actual components of why this happens in the body, so that you assign it the meaning of genetics, because it's a kind of like a catch-all term. So I'll talk to people and I'm like, hey, like, they'll tell me health issues that they have, because I've learned everything I know from him, and now people come to me. Like, I go to him for health coaching advice. Now people, my friends, everyone comes to me for health coaching advice, and then people actually go to them. It's like it all trickles down. But this is where the stump of the tree is. So people come to me and they're like, yeah, I have this, and like they say it's genetics. I'm like, really? What do you think genetics means? He's like, well, it's like in my DNA. I'm like, so why does that happen? He's like, I don't know, man. It's like genetics. I'm like, no. Like, why does your body do this? Like,
only 10% of your genes are active at any point in time, and which genes are active is determined by your environmental stimuli, which includes your thought process, gut microbiome, everything you eat, and your entire environment.
Yeah, epigenetics is also a thing that is very influential. So, for anyone out there who's been told genetics as a catch-all term to any medical ailments, go like this to your doctor and basically go
Actually,
out and
don't. I
do
mean,
your
he's probably
research.
trying to help you. He just doesn't actually.
He doesn't. Yeah,
know.
they don't know. But go out there and do your own research. Find things, start testing them out. Watch his videos. He's all great stuff. But like,
And I'll be coming out with a lot more, more in the coming, like more like scientific, kind of two different types of videos, like a daily vlog style, and then like hyper scientific, very edited, high quality, cited sources kind of videos that you can like, I don't know, send the board of a company if you want to make a business proposition. They'll be like, wow, that's really smart. Good thing you found this, Johnson.
anyways,
You're in line
my
for
point is
promotion."
just don't accept genetics as the limit. Like, push through. People thought genetics was the limit of the 4-minute mile until the first dude broke it.
Yeah.
Do not accept genetics as an excuse for why something cannot be done, why you cannot fix your own health
They
cases.
said that your heart would scientifically explode if you ran a mile faster than 4 minutes, until Roger Bannister did it. And then right after he did it, I think like 30 people did it the same year.
People used to say that you would die if you sat in cold water for like 4 minutes. I've done 20.
Yeah. Okay. So this is a great segue into. I think aging is a social construct. I think that. I mean, literally. So I've had all these health issues that people told me were just genetics and aging, and then I said no, and then I did research, and then I fixed them, and now I'm 25, and I feel better, more energetic, and I have more aggressive erections and higher sex drive, sleeping less, and working more than I did at the age of 15. Actually, yeah, even when I sleep less than I did when I was 15, I still have better erections. And more frequently. And I seem to be aging in reverse. I will eventually get all this stuff tested so I can prove to people that I am aging in reverse, because that would be fascinating. I mean, what is even aging in reverse? We'll get into that. And I'll have to figure that out.
It's like a 4-year-old dude on YouTube that looks like a vampire who claims to do it.
And drinks his son's blood. He's cool, Brian Johnson. I love to talk to him. I mean, I think vampirism is actually probably... Okay, so this is another thing we can get into. So the Bible says that the life of an animal is contained in its blood and in its fat. That should be the title of this podcast. The life of an animal is contained in its blood and its fat. The secret to immortality.
Dude, that's too long.
Is Brian Johnson a vampire? Maybe. But anyway,
This
so...
title is Brian
no, but anyway,
Johnson a
so
vampire.
they say that the life of an animal is contained in blood and fat. And I've experienced seeming reverse aging by consuming large amounts of animal fat on a lion diet. And then what?
Would it be beneficial to get blood?
Yeah, so again, the Maasai, yeah, I mean, it might be, but I think there's other ways of doing it that I'm going to explore. But I mean, we will probably eventually just drink blood just for the hell of it. But no, the Maasai in Africa, though, they drink blood. They drink animal blood. I mean, this is a very common thing. And I'm just like, okay, well, like, I
already eat raw liver and eat raw egg like yolks.
Yeah, or just consuming the life of animals, and that seems to create a reverse aging effect.
No, it's a cycling of life through you. You have to accept that you're part of a life cycle, and things die for you to exist, which is why veganisms fail epically, because they deny the whole cycle and in turn get weaker. And I can speak from this first-hand experience, because I tried veganism, and this dude was like, look at me, a month into it, he's looking at me, he's like, hey man, you okay? I'm like, yeah, I feel good. I didn't feel good. I felt bloated. You know how many calories you have to freaking consume? I was missing out on so much protein because I was force feeding myself, but never able to actually get enough food in. So my stomach looked like I was constantly pregnant, and I felt like shit because my body was always digesting food. I never just felt like full and happy, and like I just had to eat so much to actually get energy in, and it was horrible. I hated veganism.
Yeah,
but you don't realize that at the time because your mind kind of shuts off and goes off to La La Land because you're not getting any nutrients. So it's like, okay, well, you know what? We'll just kind of go to our own little world, and you feel really ungrounded. And then you also have the effect with a lot of people is, I made a video on this on my own channel.
Sugar high? The sugar high?
No, it's the fact that your body is a freaking battery. It stores nutrients within it. When you go on veganism, that is a lot, for the first time in many people's lives, that is the first time that they actually cut out heavily processed foods and eat more of a raw diet or more of an unprocessed diet. And their body has omega-3s. It has protein stored up in it. So your body taps into your own nutrient stores while not eating processed foods. So you get a connection in your head of, oh my God, this feels amazing because you cut out the processed crap. And when that happens, you're like, okay, veganism equals good. 6 months down the line, you've depleted your whole body's storage. you still think veganism equals good, even though your body's going to crap, because you made that connection so strong that you can't understand that veganism over time actually makes you feel like crap.
And you lose your brain, you lose brain capacity too. Like, I really can't state how mentally not with it, not even like there I was.
I mean, hell, man, look at all those vegans that got called out for eventually breaking down and eating fish. The issue is when you identify with your diet. You are not your diet. It's like Fight Club. You are not your job.
You are not your khakis. You are not. Exactly. You are not
Space
your
Monkey.
The Space Monkey Mafia. I love that. Space Monkey Mafia. Doo-doo-doo. That's what I don't do this other part. But Space Monkey. Anyway, so green tea. Like, I'm doing a lion diet right now with green tea because I'm not a dogmatist, and this allows me to feel good. So, but yeah, so human battery concept. In some sense, yin and yang with traditional Chinese medicine. Without getting too into it, there were minerals and metals like zinc that are associated with animal products, and there are minerals and metals like copper that are associated with plant products. You need both, like a battery. Okay, so like, there we go. Anyway, literally you use these metals in batteries. So it literally is like a battery because you need to keep the solution acidic with the electrolyte. Humans are batteries. And when you realize this, it's really like an engine
electrons,
too.
man.
It is the movement of electrons.
That's why you need electrolytes. Salt. Plugging sleep minerals, which has electrolytes. And if you can't sleep,
yeah, true. It's
you
awesome.
might just lack stuff in your brain. So you might chemically just not have the stuff you need to make your brain function properly, which we put in sleep minerals. So shameless plug, link in the description. It's awesome.
This really stuff is awesome.
We're doing a free 15-day trial right now. So depending on when this video goes up.
And we're coming with a melatonin supplement, caffeine supplement, B complex, and a few other things because I really want those to keep increasing my brain function. Yeah, so right now I really want B vitamins right now. Like right now, I want B vitamins, but I can't buy them because they all have magnesium stearate, which will destroy my gut because it's a low toxicity soap. And so I'm baking
just
it.
Something funny. I was looking into doing some ads and some branding, and I
we're not talking about branding. We're gonna keep the business.
I wanted to do a magnesium stearate eating contest. That's illegal because it's actually just really fucking toxic, and I can't legally have people eat magnesium stearate, even though the EPA allows people to eat it. They're like, no, man.
You're going to put it in a supplement and pretend it's food. If you tell people that it's toxic and that you're going to pay them to eat it, that's illegal. But if you tell them it's food and they have to pay you, that's legal. We don't really believe in that,
really
so our supplements are better. But anyway, so, yeah, it's just weird. But anyway, though, so back to the longevity topic and why I think it's possible for people to live forever. I didn't actually think this initially. I kind of thought people, like I have a friend, Caitlin Boston, is doing a lot of work in longevity and stuff, probably with Brian Johnson and stuff. But anyway, he's been on the longevity train forever. And I just thought it was kind of like satanic. I'm like, what, dude, you want to just stay in the material world forever and never rejoin with your loving creator? And then I don't know, though. It started coming around to me though, because I started experiencing reverse aging. I started seeing DNA can repair itself. I started looking at the main indications of aging being physical and not these inevitable processes that can't be reversed no matter what. And then these accounts of long-lived people, the Taoist sages, who walk a lot, which conforms to my understanding of mitochondrial training, at least somewhat. Greek mythology. And then we get into Greek mythology. So
check out the video in the description.
Yeah, I have this whole mythology of
really well done.
Yeah, it's really well explained. I won't try to explain the whole thing again because it's just I wouldn't do it justice. But basically, let's look at Achilles. Achilles, who's the greatest Greek warrior, is the most active mitochondria. He is the son of a nymph. A nymph is like a god, but they're not immortal. I don't know. I have very ideas about this. I think that there are people who have probably stumbled onto... And Achilles is a historical figure. Alexander the Great visited his grave. That's a historical fact. Achilles is a historical figure. Why all this insistence he's the son of a nymph? And that was what led to him being so great. Why all this insistence on the sons of nymphs and gods and all these things? Having superpowers, having super strength, having the qualities of, I don't know, I mean, at the very least, more active mitochondria. And even just looking at, again, the Odyssey. So in the Odyssey, Odysseus is described as looking like a beggar at points in time, literally like a homeless beggar, losing his hair, shrunken, weak looking, and then at other times he's described as looking like a god. And it says the goddess Athena transformed him like this, and that this is an easy thing that gods can do, and this is a thing that his whole family accepts, and it's known at the time. Even Laertes, his father, when Odysseus comes back, he looks much younger and stronger. Holy cow. And wow, well, even my father, when I've seen my father, very motivated, working on a project. He bought a house past few years, and on George M. Cohen, Providence, on the east side, fixed it up, sold it. It was a big project. Whatever. I mean, it's like, I'm not telling the exact house, but he did. He bought a house. He's a land developer. I mean, like, I don't know. You look up stuff about Donald Trump's dad and his land he's developed. So why shouldn't our father's exploits and conquests be more widely known? He's a very impressive man, after all. So anyway, yeah, my dad, when he was working on that project, he was super inspired. He looked 10 years younger. Like, literally.
There's a Stanford study where they took a bunch of...
What is that?
I'll wrap this up. They took 5 70-year-old men who had canes, put them in a building that looked like what society looked like 20 years beforehand. And at the end of a week, these men were running around without their canes, playing touch football, and they had reversed aged and had gained full mobility back. It was like they're 50 years old.
According to your faith, it will be done to you. The brain affects the gut microbiome via the enteric nervous system. Your gut microbiome produces enzymes, amino acids, dictates gene expression, and makes your neurotransmitters, forming a feedback loop. There's other ways to circumvent it. I mean, carnivore, like green tea, all these things, a lot of these things affect our gut microbiome and then reverse aging. Our brain also affects our gut microbiome. It's this whole thing. An inspired life. I mean, like, you have to fix more than just the one thing. And that's kind of like why W2W exists, to create all these systems and really address all these systems simultaneously. That's why we have our information products. That's why these have been available for years. That's why we're now making supplements, because people who buy the information products and the coaching are like, where do I get supplements? And we've just been telling them to make their own supplements. So now they don't have to do that anymore. They can buy these. But anyway, whatever. So moving on. So, yeah, aging. I think aging is a social construct. I think that when Noah built the ark and God flooded the world, or whatever cosmic flood event you believe that every single culture in history has reported, even Graham Hancock, I mean, whatever flood you believe in that caused mass extinction, whether it was Noah's or someone else's, and if you don't believe in a flood, well, your great-grandparents did and your great-grandchildren will, and a lot of scientists now do too, so I don't really know what ground you're standing on.
Graham Hancock.
Graham Hancock, he reports, he's a reporter who talks about like Randall Carlson is a BU geologist who speaks of a massive cataclysmic flood that caused mass extinction at the time of Noah. Randall Carlson, just look at Randall Carlson.
This, hopefully you can see on camera, that is the study I'm talking about, in case I forget to link it down below, with the 70-year-old men. I do like, I don't want to just throw things out there that was
70-year-old man study. I'll put Pottinger's Cats, a Pottinger's Cats video, because that's on how, literally these cats, they fed these cats a processed food diet, and within 3 generations, they were all infertile and dying at early ages. So literally, you eat processed foods, you die and become infertile and develop all the issues of modern society that are becoming more and more prevalent as each generation progresses, or you optimize your body, reverse age, and become a god. I mean, at the far extremes, even Pottinger's Cats, I'll put my Pottinger's Cat video. 70-year-old man study. What?
You wrote it.
No, 70. Whatever. Oh, insomnia story. But anyway, so basically, just observing these things. I mean, really, so I'm just observing all this stuff, and I'm like, okay, what the heck? Why aren't we doing this? And then, I look at Age of Adeline. That's an interesting movie where they talk about some phenomenon that gets discovered in the year 2035 that causes people to live forever. That's something to do with, electron interaction with DNA. I don't think that's going to be what causes people to live forever. I think it's going to do with the mitochondria, metabolism, and that causing basically spontaneous, instantaneous DNA repair. But there's just these intimations coming through the culture everywhere of this idea that people are going to learn how to live forever. And I think that that's because within the metadata of the cultural unconscious is the information that people need to live forever. And I think I just put this stuff together. I mean, I put it together completely because otherwise I would be a god capable of all the stuff the Greek gods are capable of. Maybe, who knows, maybe they're exaggerating. But that's one of the long-term goals of Week to Warrior is, maybe like the primary long-term goal is really investigating that thoroughly and exploiting that phenomenon. So, what other questions do you have about this, though?
No, but just talk about how we hope to do that through improving the gut microbiome, metabolism,
gene expression,
eating fermented foods, growing our own food that is non-processed, has the enzymes in it, has the actual bacteria, hasn't been, like chicken is dunked in chlorine.
Yeah.
It's horrible for you. All the modern food is highly processed, covered in stuff that wrecks your gut, and you kind of just need like a place or local farms that don't do this. So one of our goals is to buy a thing of land and then
grow our own food, become our own food supplier. I mean,
also have like a monastery or system up on that where people can come visit and do work on their farm for stay and for food.
learn all the systems and stuff. Kind of like the monastic system that Alan Watts talked about existing in Japan for Zen.
Yeah,
I like that. I like that system.
Where people that
Jiu-jitsu,
want to become more mindful, think, can just kind of go off into the woods and come to our place, and they can become one with the land again, become one with themselves again, and understand and get away from the stresses of the phone, the stresses of modernity, the constant distractions that we're attuned to on an everyday basis. So these are the goals that we have in the future, and these are where we're hoping to take it. So just putting that out there because people like to know. I mean,
how often do people just die because all their friends are dead and they don't have a reason to keep going?
Wow.
I'm really interested. I like to push the envelope. That's my mission, is to deconstruct the social construct of aging. Because at the very least, people are substantially less healthy, vital, strong, and living far less than they could be if they simply exploited all the resources that we have available with our current level of understanding. So then if we had a society of everyone doing that, and then assessed that to derive new principles to base new systems on, what could be done there?
Even though the documentary's not that good, and there's more information on his channel than on the actual documentary, Netflix even put out a documentary talking about how the modern processed foods cause the decay of the gut microbiome, which leads to the increase in pharmaceutical being taken, like antidepressants, ADHD medication. So Netflix has the documentary talking about it, and even though it's a highly entertaining one, I mean, they don't really go into the science deep into it, even them are like beginning to understand part of the connection between the gut microbiome, health, metabolism, and the issues that we're facing nowadays. And of course you can't take Netflix's word at it, because I mean, they also came out with Game Changers. It's a horrible documentary, but
you get good information. I mean, like a broken clock is right twice a day. So I think, my main basic idea with Week to Warrior is simply my observation. So I've just basically, fixing insomnia has been so complicated for me that I've just made it into a business so I can actually profit from it and stop just like losing all of my money buying health foods and trying to find the esoteric supplements that don't have poison in them that don't exist. So
the cornerstone of health is sleep. So if you know how to sleep, you kind of, in order to learn how to sleep properly, you kind of have to master at least
everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say sleep is the chemistry of health. In the same way that chemistry is the central science of science, like in order to do any science, you must use chemistry. In order to do health, you must use sleep. Really? Yeah. Materials engineering is based on what?
Stress testing wood.
Chemistry. Anyway, so... But
yeah, everything's atoms. I mean,
yeah, it's material. It's the
the particle physicist is gonna, or the theoretical physicist is gonna argue everything is based off the Higgs boson and other crap like that.
They still needed a chemist to create the apparatus they used to detect the Higgs boson, or like, so that's my point. Is like, to ground something in reality, you must interact with the materiality of it, which is chemistry. Which is why I had to put more energy into studying chemistry, because I branched off from it. When I was like in high school, like that was all I did was like chemistry, for that reason, because it's the most useful science. So then. Oh yeah, so sleep. Oh, so basically, I just try to sleep, and like no one on Earth actually understands how to fix insomnia. I checked and double checked and triple checked, so it was very sad for me, and I had to spend the last 15 years basically researching how to fix this. And it's still an ongoing thing because I still get occasional sleep issues that crop up, in like 6 months or and I just don't, you know what I mean? It's like, okay, like, let's say that Devin, when he's less healthy, develops sleep issues. And let's say that people's general conception of aging is becoming less healthy. Well, seeing as I don't want to spend the last years of my life in agony and torture, I better be really good at understanding exactly, like, I just, this is my ongoing thing, is like, how do I just keep getting better and better at sleep? And then I started realizing that sleep was really this complex process of optimizing metabolism and structure within like a framework of like this battery-like framework. I started like understanding this sort of framework, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because it'd take the whole video for me to take forever. But
kill that battery.
But basically though,
you kill my
so I
battery,
started creating this framework, and I just keep working on it because now I'm looking at the framework. I'm writing a book called Week to Warrior. It's going to be God Engine, but God Engine's just going to be like a section of it because
books.
Yeah, books. There's reasons for that. But basically, because I want to give people more actionable stuff, I don't want to make the entire book just me talking about my theory of metabolism when you also need to understand all this other stuff about physical training, and there's a whole bunch of other stuff that's also useful. And like I want this to be a useful book, not just like something for nerds who are like really interested in like, and this study, and then ancient Greek mythology. You're like, okay, like how am I gonna like stop my knees from hurting? So that's the book's gonna cover that too. And I'll get more into the theory, but God Engine is this idea that I came up with, is this framework I came up with for metabolism, because I realized that to optimize sleep, I have to optimize metabolism. And then in optimizing metabolism, I started like looking at all the things that went into metabolism, and I'm like, high metabolism under certain circumstances leads to reverse aging. People's main issue is that they can't maintain high metabolism for these reasons. Well, if I can define why people can't maintain or increase metabolism past a certain point, and this level of metabolism causes reverse aging, which it does, then, and let's put that study, metabolism, DNA repair. So basically, we see that going on. We see metabolism correlated with detox of heavy metals. We see metabolism correlated with improvements in gut microbiome. Gut microbiome produces enzymes. Enzyme content is directly correlated to aging.
Metabolism also helps hormones.
And enzymes do like everything. They do literally like everything in your body. Hormones, like everything, like literally everything. So it's just like, I'm like looking at this, and then like hormones create higher metabolism, which creates better gut microbiome, creating more enzymes. I'm like, so why don't we become immortal? I mean, really, looking at these feedback loops, why don't we become immortal? So I start defining the things that prevent us, and I'm looking at this, and just in all honesty, it seems to me like it's very likely that human beings could live forever. I mean, there's already established that diet, I think, is the main predictor of longevity. I mean, even people talking about these blue zones with all the missed data about the blue zones. Blue zones are vegetarian. No, they're not. That data is wrong. The data, the average lifespan's over 100, basically. A lot of blue zones, meat heavy, but if you look at blue zones under the 4 criteria: enzyme content in food, meat content and nutrient density in food, the absence of processed foods, walking. I'll say 5, social relationships, because my other idea is that aging is a social construct. Look at those 5 things. That's all metabolism. Each of those 5 things is metabolism in some form. So metabolism is what makes us not age. Metabolism is influenced by diet. You just look at the data that is clearly there, and then what comes from that data is human beings live to 150 sometimes when this food quality is really good. The Vikings were the greatest warriors in the ancient world, and they ate only meat. Shakespeare said, feed them beef and give them iron, and they'll eat like wolves and fight like demons. Eat like wolves. Why would they eat like a wolf? Because their metabolism is higher. Like, it's just there. You look at it and you're like, okay. I mean, I do this myself. I go on carnivore. I reverse age. I go off carnivore. I mean, if I do it the right way, like my personal DNA at this point in time, I believe, is maximized via 80% of my energy comes from fat, 20% from carbohydrates in a cyclic ketogenic diet. Probably got 2 weeks on, I'm doing 1 week on, 1 day off, 2 days off. That's basically what I'm doing. And that, if you want to look into that, that's William Wolcott, Wolcott Metabolic Typing Diet, which is Paul Chek. Most of Paul Chek's most innovative stuff, I believe, comes from that and enzymes. Typing diet. So looking at William Wolcott Metabolic Typing Diet, where he talks about how metabolism, your cell's ability to engage in proper metabolism is genetically determined and is either optimized around fat or carbohydrates. That can change because obviously your gene expression changes, but basically that's what it is. Like, if you are having a lot of health issues and you've only run on carb, if you've never done keto, you're probably going to go on keto and your health issues are going to resolve. Why? Because you just changed the way your cells are processing energy, and now the cellular byproducts are different. And maybe you run into issues in 2 months, 2 years, 20 years, because you run out of enzymes, your body needs a different energy source because you weren't actually meant to do that straight for 20 years. The Eskimos who do carnivore seasonally will eat like carbohydrates. The Maasai who also do carnivore will eat honey. So there's and even
bile from like animal stomachs.
Yeah, even the enzymes. So exactly. So then also, though, people on a carbohydrate-based diet also fast. So everyone engages in some form of the two forms of energy metabolism. And whether or not they're conscious of it, basically everyone's unconscious of it, and then they form dogmas about which form of energy metabolism they. I mean, there's even intermittent fasting. There's a dogma about switching between sources of energy. I mean, it's just, I don't subscribe to anything because I notice that it always changes. I notice that I will do very, very well on only beef, salt, and water for a very long time, and then I'll need to add in some carbs cyclically, and then I'll do only carbs, and then, but what am I optimizing for is the question. This is what I've focused on over all these dietary transformations. I have focused on optimizing for metabolism within structure, getting stronger and burning more calories. Muscle mass also increases my ability to burn more calories, which increases the amount of nutrients I'm taking in, increases my body's ability to generate amino acids, enzymes, neurotransmitters, all these different, repair itself, all these things. But even like old people, the reason they look all like saggy is because they have less collagen, because their body can no longer produce collagen because of enzyme depletion. Like, these things are all physically grounded, and when you understand what underlying mechanisms are there and you reverse them, then they reverse. The reason that we haven't been able to live forever yet, I think, is A, people are trying to do weird CRISPR-Cas9 gene editing stuff because they want to prioritize, they want to own the technology. I mean, I don't think you can own this technology. I mean, nymphs in ancient Greece, again, look at the video down below, nymphs in ancient Greece sprung up everywhere. I think that this is just something that people have figured out, probably because they had really healthy parents and stuff. Pottinger's cat video, look at that. Your parents' enzymes, gut microbiome, metabolism, belief systems, habits influence you as well, so you learn from them. So I think that basically, I mean, just look at the world, and there's families of healthy people, there's families of very unhealthy people. Families of healthy people produce more healthy people who have more ideas and do more things because they're healthier and have more energy, which leads to greater resources and greater ability to generate knowledge. I mean, it makes sense that you would have these disparities. Some people, I mean, like, you like to joke about, like, I don't know, like people in the olden days living to 40 and dying because of whatever. And most of that's just because people live in slave conditions, which is another video that we need to make. But basically, because you're slaves, you don't want your slaves living that long, and like, because you don't take care of them. I mean, like, really, like, and then the definition of slavery, we have another video on slavery down below that we should link. If you don't have 2/3 of your waking hours to your own devices, you're a slave. the gentry, if you want to look up the definition of gentrification, which is what bothers all these people, because the rich people who own everything come in and buy up all the stuff, because to those who have everything more will be given, and from those who have nothing, even the little they have will be taken from them. The gentry who spend most of their time doing fun things, thinking about how to make more money, not working, create more ideas, and then get all the money, and then go buy everything, and then come in and then force everyone else out with higher prices. Because you're not a free person, you're a slave. I mean, there's a brief period in the United States where basically, due to the GI Bill after World War II, the United States sold the manufacturing capacity of the entire world to the generation of people who fought in World War II, creating favorable economic conditions in the United States, leading to a generation of people who basically were now gentry, or able to live like gentry if they so chose, for the first time in human history, creating a middle class. The middle class has only really ever existed in the United States, and I mean the only thing that resembled a middle class outside of that was the merchant class, which was the class of business owners outside of landowners. So there's landowners, there's business owners, then there's slaves. Am I wrong? Has the world changed that dramatically, except for the brief period of time in the United States after World War II? Yes, but I mean, unless they have 2/3 of their waking hours to themselves, then they can't actually raise their children effectively. Their children will be raised by other people, and the land will shortly return to the hands of the people who really own it, the people who have 2/3 of their waking hours to themselves. So there's this delusion, too. People associate money with not being a slave, which is how they've enslaved us, ultimately. Again, like, well, if the United States was so free and full of all these people who weren't really slaves from the 50s and stuff, then how did we get enslaved? Well, they enslaved you, my friend, by telling you that having money was what made you not a slave, instead of raising your children and having your waking hours and your energy to yourself. I mean, all your energy and all your thoughts go to your boss, and then you get home, you don't have anything, you don't have the energy to build anything. If all your most productive, energetic, determined, and focused hours go to building the dreams of another man, you are a slave, my friend. And they have got you into that position by giving you money, because they know that if you sell yourself into slavery for money, you will not build your own dreams, you will build theirs, your children will be raised by someone else, they will not have your values, they'll have someone else's, and then you will die, leave what you have to your children, and your children will continue the same existence as you if they're able to even maintain it. Probably not, probably going to be poor. Probably the only reason you can work that hard to make that much money is because you have an education. Then 2 or 3 generations, your children won't be able to afford, because they weren't able to look at the opportunities that the gentry who had the time to analyze the chessboard did. They stole your business, they took your house, you're living in a tenement building, you're a slave.
Oh, plus your health's going to be worse. Their health is going to be worse than yours because of
the poisoned food.
Yeah.
Your grandparents in the 50s, they were eating real food because, again, most of these people were coming off of farms. Oh, what's that? The people in the United States who went to war, benefited from the GI Bill, were either living on farms or working for people who own farms, because, again, the only thing that made the United States free was the presence of landowners and business owners. If you are neither, you are a slave. And if you're not, well, I have a house, I got a mortgage. If you have a mortgage, you're not a landowner. A landowner is like my father, who has renters, get people paying him rent every single month. He's got one mortgage, but that's just like to pay off the other houses and stuff. All those other things are profit. Mortgages are strategic, he's banking checks. He did that because he decided he wasn't going to be poor, and he succeeded. I think that ultimately what makes you a real person is your ability to actualize your own dreams. My father succeeded in being a real person because when he was born, he lived in the ghetto and had to steal food out of dumpsters. And he decided that he wasn't going to be poor, and it basically killed him twice. He had a heart attack and cancer, but he is not poor. That's what the Nietzschean will, the cultivation of the will. And I think that if you are unable to cultivate your own will because you live a distracted life, if you do not have a single goal that you have really accomplished, and people say, well, I'm a parent, I raised my kids. Did you raise your kids? I'm not saying you didn't. I'm not going to say you did. I'm just going to leave that up to you, and I'm going to leave that question hanging in the air. And I'll say this. I'll say you raised your kids to the degree to which you like them. So they'll just, someone's going to bother us when we should wrap up. But anyway, so you raised your kids to the degree that you like them as adults. So if you don't like your 30-year-old kid, you don't spend that much time around them, you spend less than 2 weeks a year with your kids, then did you even raise them? Is it a symbolic relationship? I'm just asking questions because I don't want to live a meaningless life, because as far as I know, I only get one of them, and it just matters to me because I just care about my life. Selfish, I know, but I'm willing to defend it to the death. So if you disagree, tough on you, whatever. I care about my life, and I'm going to actualize it. And that's will. And I want my children to have will as well. So I will provide them with the means of education, the means of time to self-reflect. I will make them work so that they understand work. I will make them learn so that they understand knowledge. But mostly I will encourage them, and I will provide them with healthy food so that they don't experience what I see when I look out the window. Just look around. Look at the average person you see. Is that what you want for yourself and your children? Look at your children and yourself now. Is that what you want? Did you get what you wanted out of life? Or did you settle? Did someone sell you on their dreams? Not even your dreams. They didn't even sell you on their dreams, really. They just sold you on a paycheck that's getting inflated away because in the time you spent working your life away at an office, they removed the silver standard. So your currency that your parents and grandparents worked for isn't even the same currency. You haven't noticed because you're a slave. You're a good little slave who just works and eats your poison slop. Your brain doesn't work, but you don't care. You won't do anything about it. You'll just show up day after day until you get cancer and die, and your children will do the same thing, and your inheritance will be split up by people who are paying attention. I'm not even saying me. There are other people, multi-generational families. Where do you think royalty went to? Where do you think all this money's gone? Where do you think the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts and the Carnegies went? Think they just disappeared? No, they're just orchestrating things behind the scenes with familial organization because they actually get along with their kids because they raised them. That's what royalty is. My brother said to me in the car, he liked this quote from Andrew Tate. He talked about Muslim families and how they will, what was it?
Andrew Tate was talking about how, I think he was in college or something, I'm not sure he went to college. He was talking about he met this Muslim dude.
High school. It's high school.
He met this Muslim dude driving a Ferrari. He's like, hey man, how do you afford that? He's like, well, I live in a house with my 9 brothers, and our wives take care of the house and raise the kids, and the men go off and make money, and we pull all this money together and we pay for the house. So you rent, you are going to rent in a separate house than your brother, and you're going to then rent from us. So we will take that money because we're able to get along together and raise each other and help out so we can share our resources. But so many people nowadays are like, I need to have my own house, I need to do this, I can't live with other people, independence. You're just paying money to other people. Because you don't like your family, because you can't stand to live in the same house as them. And it's like, you could just build extensions on, you could buy more land, you could work together. I mean, really, let's look at it this way. Everyone's like, oh, the royal family in Britain. They're just a group of people who share the same blood and have a cohesive plan. It's the multi-generational plan. People are like, literally, this is the whole crazy thing. People are like, oh my God, the Jews are taking over the world. No, they're not. They're just a multi-generational group of people who have a plan. And literally, this is it. This is why it seems like the Jews are taking over the world. Dismantling all the conspiracies right now. They eat dinner together every Saturday. Yeah.
Just 2,000 years of that. Do you eat dinner with your family on Saturday? Think of this. Your parents have friends who have money. Those people know other people who have money. The only reason you're not getting that money is because, and they're giving it to other people who are probably less qualified than you for things that you could do for them because they don't know you, because they've never met you, because you don't eat dinner with your own parents. At least once a week. The Jews do that, so they own all the stuff. People who eat dinner with their families own everything. No, we're not. Dude, it's good. It's good. He doesn't understand that notoriety is wealth. There's no such thing as bad publicity. Donald Trump proved that. I guess there is bad publicity. But Donald Trump just ballsed his way into the presidency. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you're following us because you like the quality of the information, not because we're PC.
Give it to you raw.
I don't think exactly. Hey, but It's how people like it. But anyway, at the end of the day, that's how people like it. But really, though, like...
Ron, I can't like being stuck behind a computer for hours
facts,
videos.
Exactly. I don't like blah 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 blah. Yeah, so anyway, basically though, I mean, if you look at the whole scientific method, this is kind of like, let's wrap up this. The scientific method was created by the royalty of the Enlightenment because they had the time to think about ideas and play around with stuff. Go verify that. So right now, I mean, the only reason I was able to figure this out is because I had health problems that were horrible, and my father had enough money to allow me the time to figure it out. Royalty. A little bit, low-level royalty. But basically, though, that's the whole thing. So I figured this stuff out, and now I am going to I'm probably not going to publicize the fact that I'm going to live forever, though. I'm just going to say this, though. I'm going to be very loud about this now, and then I'm probably, as I actually discover how to live forever, I will stop talking about it. And at the point where I stop aging, I will retire, my children will take things over, I will fade away, fake my own death, and live in the woods on my private island as a nymph with my wife, having like amazing sex, and just continuing my work on these ideas. Because I do think that I would be assassinated if people knew that I was living forever, because there'd be a lot of jealousy. So a large plan of Week to Warrior is to not get me assassinated, because I just noticed that people who try to change the world often end up dead. Hillary Clinton's a wonderful woman. Okay, let's end this.